Top Thrill 2 is the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the United States. Located at Cedar Point, this is a massive multi-launch coaster. It originally opened in 2003 as an Intamin hydraulic launch coaster known as Top Thrill Dragster. But after a tragic accident in 2021, the ride closed forever. It reopened in 2024 as Top Thrill 2, but it's now way different. This video will be a detailed review of the new experience. If you're interested in Top Thrill Dragster, this review will touch on that ride mostly to compare it to the new version, but there already is a separate review dedicated to that ride on the channel. If you already saw that review, the next part will be a bit repetitive. The original Dragster's history is integral to Top Thrill 2's history. If you want to skip this, go to the time shown on screen. Cedar Point loves records. They particularly love the height and speed records, but there were some asterisks next to their records. Gemini opened in 1978. The park claimed it was the tallest and fastest coaster out there. While Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg was slightly taller, and Screamin' Eagle at Six Flags St. Louis was slightly faster, Gemini did have the largest drop of the three. Magnum XL 200 opened in 1989 as the tallest and fastest full-circuit roller coaster. It broke the 200-foot height barrier, so it is often called the first hypercoaster. However, Moonsault Scramble at Fuji-Q Highland was an even taller ride, but this was a shuttle coaster, so Cedar Point did not count it. Millennium Force opened in 2000 once again as the tallest and fastest full-circuit roller coaster. It broke the 300-foot height barrier, so it is often called the first Giga Coaster. However, there once again were two taller and faster shuttle coasters already out there, Tower of Terror at Dreamworld and Superman at Six Flags Magic Mountain. The latter stood 415 feet or 126 meters tall. In 2003, Cedar Point built something that would unquestionably take sole ownership of the height and speed records. This is the subject of this video, Top Thrill Dragster. Planning for this coaster started shortly after Millennium Force opened. The park contacted Intamin, who had built both Millennium Force and Superman. They brainstormed a massive launch coaster using a newer propulsion method. After the 2021 season, the park relocated one of their Dodgem rides to Michigan's Adventure. In early 2002, Intamin laid some giant concrete footers for the top hat, and Cedar Point hid them behind a fence. Enthusiasts thought nothing of Intamin being on site at the time because they were in the process of constructing Wicked Twister, an impulse coaster. Meanwhile, across the country, Cedar Fair and Intamin opened Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm. This was the prototype hydraulic launch coaster. During normal operation, this coaster would accelerate riders from 0 to 82 miles per hour or 132 kilometers per hour in just 2.3 seconds. However, while the ride was closed, Intamin tested launches of 112 miles per hour and 117 miles per hour. Footage of this is exceedingly rare, but there's a great video of this on Midway Mayhem's channel. This proved the hydraulic launch could accelerate a train fast enough to break the height and speed records. With this proven, track appeared on site and vertical construction began. It was not until early 2003 when the ride stats were announced. This was deliberately done so another park would not swoop in and beat them to the records. And their fears were warranted, especially since Six Flags Great Adventure opened Kingda Ka in 2005. This was a near clone of Dragster that was just a little bit taller and faster. Top Thrill Dragster would feature a 120 mile per hour or 190 km per hour launch and a 420 foot or 130 meter tall top hat. This made it the first Strata coaster, or coaster to exceed the 400 foot mark. While Superman's structure exceeded this mark as well, the train never actually reached this height. I only count something as a hyper, giga, or strata if the train reaches that height or is a drop of that height. Top Thrill Dragster opened in 2003, but it operated very sporadically that year. It was closed more often than it was open. Interestingly, Cedar Point and Intamin played around with the trains quite a bit. It was always supposed to have a 5-car train, but it opened with just 4 cars to save some weight. The original configuration sat just 12 riders. The middle cars had 2 rows of 2. Then the front and back cars accommodated just 2 riders each. The latter also had large decorative tires, a fake engine, and a fin. By the ride's second operating season, it was using the 5-car train as intended. However, the decorations on the back car were removed. This was another wage-saving strategy, but the park added 2 extra seats there, which is a fair trade in my opinion. We have seen many rides open with poor reliability and improve with time. Top Thrill Dragster was always a problem child. It was one of the most mechanically complex coasters in the world. The hydraulic launch had a lot of moving parts between the catch car and cable. The latter snapped at least once with guests on board. Then the launch track was lined with a series of retractable brakes in case the train were to roll back. There were hundreds of sensors involved with this, and if any of them tripped, the ride would fault. Along with the mechanical issues, this ride also hated Mother Nature. It was extremely sensitive to wind. This would cause the ride to roll back as well. If you felt any significant breeze at ground level, think 15 miles per hour or more, this coaster would usually close. That is because it would be even windier atop the tower where a wind meter was located. I have seen some sources say the official closing speed was if the meter read 30 to 35 miles per hour. Then the coaster would not operate in any rain. This was for the comfort of guests. This is how most of the accelerator coasters are operated, so it wasn't specific to Top Thrill Dragster. But Dragster's biggest issue occurred in 2021. A guest waiting in line was seriously injured by a flag plate that dislodged from the train. The investigation did not find Cedar Point at fault, but the ride never reopened. It is possible that Cedar Point was already looking to close Dragster due to its frequent downtime and high operating costs. But this accident was the straw that broke the camel's back. In 2022, the park officially announced that Top Thrill Dragster, as we knew it, was being retired. They said the coaster would return as a new and reimagined experience. People immediately theorized a hydraulic launch would be replaced with an LSM launch. LSMs are the preferred propulsion method for most manufacturers now. Compared to hydraulic launches, they are way more reliable as they have no moving parts, and they are more cost-effective as well. Red Force of Ferrariland in Spain has a similar layout to Top Thrill Dragster, and it uses this method to launch trains to 112 miles per hour or 180 kilometers per hour and up a 367-foot or 112-meter tall top hat. However, that ride's trains are 2 cars shorter, and it featured a longer launch track, so it was not possible to do a one-for-one swap of Dragster's old launch without further modifying the ride. Fortunately, multiple manufacturers, including Intamin, had developed swing launches. This multi-pass launch allowed rides to achieve greater speeds in shorter distances, and they were typically accommodated by a crowd-pleasing spike offering oodles of weightlessness. Given their history with record-breaking coasters, swing launch coasters, and the original Dragster, people assumed Intamin would be behind the renovation. However, El Toro Ryan shared that Zamperla would be behind the conversion. This seemed unbelievable, as the Italian manufacturer had not even built a coaster 1/3 of Dragster's height. But they indeed were the manufacturer that was selected. I have heard that Intamin submitted a bid, but the rumor is that their proposal would have either required the removal of Iron Dragon or a shorter 200-foot spike. Zamperla proposed a 420-foot spike that could work around Iron Dragon. I also suspect they may have been cheaper, as they wanted a chance to showcase their recently improved coaster division. What better way to announce to the world you're a major player in the coaster industry than to have a signature roller coaster at America's Roller Coast? This conversion was a pretty rare event. We have seen wood coasters turned into hybrid coasters, but it's exceedingly rare to see a steel coaster converted into something else by any manufacturer, especially an entirely different manufacturer. The most notable cases I can think of are Steel Phantom in A Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood, and Buzzsaw Falls in a Powder Keg at Silver Dollar City. Top Thrill 2 opened in 2024, but it had a terrible inaugural season, operating for just 1 week before it closed down. Zamperla's prototype Lightning trains developed an issue that took a year to resolve. I indirectly think this closure may have contributed to Kingda Ka's demise. That coaster closed down permanently a few months after Top Thrill 2's disastrous debut. I suspect the newly merged Six Flags chain may have wanted to do a similar conversion to Kingda Ka to reduce its operating costs. But after the issues with Top Thrill 2, they instead chose to scrap the ride and build an entirely different record-breaking coaster in its place. Top Thrill 2 reopened in 2025. It had a much publicized and ill-timed closure during Coaster Mania weekend due to an issue with the spike, but otherwise has operated fairly reliably. Hopefully that continues going forwards. Right now, Top Thrill 2 is the world's tallest coaster, but that will change when Six Flags Qiddiya opens Falcon's Flight. I don't think this coaster is in any danger of losing the height and speed records in the US anytime soon though. Like the original Dragster, Top Thrill 2 has an incredible presentation. The top hat is just as massive and imposing as before, but now you have a spike that is equally as tall. You can see these elements from anywhere within the park, and when you approach the park coming down the causeway. While the new version's launch is not as impressive to witness due to the tamer acceleration, it is still undeniably cool seeing a train whiz past you at speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour. So the ride retained the bleachers to showcase the experience. These also fit in with the racing theme. Whereas Dragster was themed to drag racing, Top Thrill 2 is stylized closer to Formula 1. The nose pieces of the train resemble those vehicles. Then there are racing lights to coincide with the initial takeoff. These are both at ground level adjacent to the launch and on the tower itself. While the ride does not have much theming, that is fine. The elements can stand on their own. What is really unfortunate though, is the complete lack of theming in the queue. This is one of the dullest queues out there. There is nothing to look at. It is a long covered box, so you can't even see the ride cycling like you could with Dragster. This was likely done as an extra contingency to protect guests after the 2021 incident. Making matters worse, you cannot bring your phone into the queue. Everything must go in a locker by the ride's entrance. These cost extra in the ride's inaugural year, but small ones are now thankfully free. Very important note on what you wear. You must have tight-fitting shoes with straps and backs. This means you cannot wear slippers, sandals, or flip-flops. The latter two are particularly noteworthy because Cedar Point is right next to the beach. Unlike other rides like Raptor where you can simply remove your footwear and ride barefoot, you cannot do that with Top Thrill 2. You cannot even enter the queue without proper footwear. To enter the queue, you must pass through a metal detector. This verifies everything is safely in a locker. I really wish the metal detectors and lockers were later in the queue like Steel Vengeance and Siren's Curse. That way, you can wade through a majority of the line with your stuff to keep you entertained. That is because Top Thrill 2 typically has one of the longer waits in the park. It is usually around the 45 to 60 minute mark most days, and it can climb even higher to the 90 to 120 minute mark on particularly busy days. That is not the fault of the crew though. They load and dispatch trains like clockwork. There almost always is one cycling on the course. It helps this coaster just a lap bar and no seatbelts, so the restraints are super quick to check. Further, the lack of loose articles means that guests can go straight to their seats, and the ride also has separate load and unload stations. Top Thrill 2's trains seat 20 riders, which is 2 more people than Dragster. You have 5 cars in each train, each with 2 rows of 2. I believe this coaster usually operates with 3 trains. While the original Dragster ran 5 trains, I believe Top Thrill 2's theoretical capacity is only slightly less. The practical capacity is higher though, because this coaster has suffered less daily downtime in 2025 than Dragster typically did. This ride can still suffer from some technical issues though, and it will also close in high winds and heavy rain, but I believe the limits are at least a bit higher than that of Dragster. What are the best ways to avoid a long wait? Option 1 is to head here during early entry. The ride is currently available as part of this, although that could change in the future. This perk lets you into the park an hour early every single day. It is available to those with prestige passes or those staying on site. It is also available to those with gold passes in 2024, but not in future seasons. If you enter the park using the gate by Magnum XL 200, you should be able to walk onto this coaster before those from the main entrance even reach it. Even if there's a queue, it'll move faster than usual without fast lane being active. In a similar vein, option 2 is to head here during the end of the night. With no more fast lane users being admitted, Standby will move much faster than usual. Option 3 is to use Fast Lane Plus. Several passes have one-time fast lanes on them, or you can purchase the upcharge for the day. This is pricey, but it can save a lot of time. This routes you directly to the station. When you reach the station, you are assigned a row. Several attendants will try to honor row requests if you ask nicely. Some wouldn't go more than 2 or 3 groups deep for a row though, so it depends on the person. I recommend trying both the front and back at least once if you're able to. Each feel quite different. The front offers the best sense of speed. The back offers the superior forces, particularly on the top hat. That is where I ultimately preferred to ride this coaster. This ride uses Zamperla's new Lightning trains. These are aluminum to reduce weight. They are weldless, so I am intrigued to see how they hold up long term. Now I love how they feel though. They feel sort of like Intamin's new generation trains. You have slightly raised seats with super comfortable overhead lap bars, and once the train locks, the bar cannot lower any further, so you will not get stapled by the forces, which is really nice. I think these are more comfortable than Dragster's old trains, particularly in terms of legroom. I also prefer the wider profiling on Top Thrill 2's lap bar. I also believe the Lightning trains are more accommodating. Dragster had very short seatbelts that were difficult for larger guests. This was on top of a T-bar harness that was restrictive to begin with. Top Thrill 2 does not have seatbelts, and I think the verify is quite a bit higher. Once checked, you roll forwards. You then have an S-bend onto the launch track. The train pauses briefly, while the S-bend slides sideways and is replaced by a straight piece of track that connects to the spike. One of the best aspects about Dragster was the anticipation. It was impossible not to feel your heart beating as you saw the massive top hat right in front of you, especially knowing how powerful the launch was. The top hat is just as tall, but the anticipation doesn't feel quite the same here because the launches are much milder, particularly that first one. When it's time to launch, you'll hear some beeps as the lights flash. Then you take off. Launch 1 accelerates you to 74 miles per hour or 119 kilometers per hour. That sounds more impressive than it really is. This launch only has okay punch to it. You have a ton of track here, so you accumulate speed at a rather slow rate. It is nothing compared to the violent yank of Dragster's old hydraulic launch. It feels most similar to a mock launch, which is not the most inspiring comparison for a high thrill coaster. You then receive the much publicized rollback. People fantasize about getting these in the original Dragster. A rollback is when you fail to clear the top hat. That could happen on occasion, much to the delight of coaster enthusiasts, but I never experienced one. It sounded amazing though, falling backwards 40 stories, and you get to experience the launch a second time, so it was an absolute win. On Top Thrill 2, you just barely make it past the pullout before you bleed off all your speed. This only offers a little weightlessness. You then fall backwards and hit Launch 2. This is where things get interesting. This accelerates you to 101 miles per hour, or 163 kilometers per hour, taking the world record for the fastest backwards launch. I expected this to be stronger than it is. You only get a light kick when it engages. Then you don't get that wind in your face sensation, but it is disorienting traveling that fast in reverse. This part feels similar to the launch of Superman at Six Flags Magic Mountain. You then have an intense climb into the spike. It offers a good blast of positive Gs, and you narrowly avoid an overhang on the station. This is a particularly cool head chopper because you cannot see it coming due to your direction of travel. Then the spike is great. The sheer size of it makes all other spikes feel like kiddie coasters. This one lasts an eternity. It offers perfect and ultra sustained weightlessness. At the top, you get a stunning view of the park. It is surreal looking down a ride as tall as Power Tower. Then I get a bit of a falling sensation coming down, similar to a drop tower, due to the size and orientation. Then the pullout abruptly ends the floating, throwing you back down to your seat, as you get high positive Gs like the entrance. Now it is time for Launch 3. This brings you to your max speed of 120 miles per hour, or 190 kilometers per hour. You barely feel much acceleration though. It is far too gradual. You just feel a ton of sustained speed. That is particularly true if you're sitting up front, as your face is pushed back by the wind. So even if the rate of acceleration is rather lackluster, experiencing that much speed for so long is a treat. Most other launch coasters only go 100 miles per hour for an instant. You go that speed for several seconds here. Top Thrill 2 is the same reported top speed as Dragster. However, the latter didn't always hit that. Top Thrill 2 does, which makes the top hat much more intense. The entrance offers another strong dose of positive G's. Then you have a vertical climb towards the sky, twisting 90 degrees. The visuals are excellent. Seeing the park and Lake Erie from 40 stories up is magical. It is one of the best sights of any coaster. You crest the top with more speed than Dragster, so you get significantly stronger airtime. Whereas Dragster offered decent floater, Top Thrill 2 offers good ejector in all rows. I particularly love this moment in the back because of how sustained it is. You get decent ejector going up, then you are catapulted even higher on the drop. It is truly some extreme ejector. But that's not all. When you hit the 270-degree twist, you get violent laterals. They were always great on Dragster, but they are otherworldly here. I think it's a combination of the added speed and higher center of gravity on the new trains. The laterals are completely out of control in the back because you're still ejected when you experience them. My body basically ragdolled over the side of the train. It is one of the craziest lateral moments out there. This is immediately followed by a powerful pullout that offers another strong dose of positive G's. You then feel this ride's incredible speed one last time. You charge down a straight track underneath the finish line. You then hit the brakes and smoothly decelerate. The train then parks in the unload platform, ending the experience. With a colossal spike, the coaster now has 22% more track than Dragster, so you now traverse 3,422 feet, or 1,043 meters of track. Due to the multi-pass launch, this coaster is a much longer duration than the original Dragster. It offers almost 3 times as much prime ride time. This does come at the expense of pacing though. Whereas Dragster was a total rush start to finish, Top Thrill 2 takes a bit to get going. The initial launch and rollback are merely fine. Everything after that is fast and furious though. In terms of smoothness, Top Thrill 2 is mostly good. The spike and top hat track great. The train shimmies quite a bit during the launch though. It does not cause any pain or discomfort due to those brilliant trains, but you'll definitely notice the shake. I think the original Dragster tracked a bit better on the launch. That one shook, but not nearly as much. So what would I rate Top Thrill 2? I would give this coaster an 8 out of 10. This is a great coaster once it gets going. After that initial launch and rollback, you spend a large chunk of the ride at speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour. Even though the launches are not overly punchy, experiencing speed that's substantial makes them memorable. Then you have one of the best spikes out there, and an absolutely crazy top hat. The latter is the defining moment of this coaster for me, because of that ejector airtime and lateral combination. Do I prefer Top Thrill Dragster or Top Thrill 2? That is close, but I prefer Dragster because of the old launch. It was one of the best elements out there. Top Thrill 2 beats Dragster in most other areas, but the launches just did not have the same out of control feeling. Do I think Cedar Point made the right decision turning Dragster into Top Thrill 2? Yes, I do. While Top Thrill 2 had a rocky initial season, the ride should be more reliable and cost effective in the long run, and I really think the park had to do something drastic after the negative publicity from 2021's incident. Those are my thoughts on Top Thrill 2 at Cedar Point. How do you think this compares to the original Dragster? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.